Disclaimer, this is not financial advice. Always do your own due diligence before putting your money to work. With that out of the way, let's have some fun and enjoy the episode. What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of the Rich Off Gains podcast. This is episode 32. Happy Monday Mondays, y'all. It's your boy CB checking back in with y'all. Hope you all had a great weekend and hope you all had a great day in the market today. Without further ado, let's get right to it though. But before we get started, I want to just say a few things. On your journey, it's important to know that all the hardships, all of the challenges, all the things you're facing are meant to build your character and your ability to overcome challenge. Nothing in life worth having is easy. So you have to work harder than the people who think or expect a handout or expect something to just fall in their lap, because it's not going to happen that way. You have to work hard and put all your energy, effort, and time into the thing to happen the way you want it to happen and the outcome you want to have. It takes a lot of time and energy into putting that thing, input into putting into the thing that you want in order to get the results. So understanding that you're going to face hardships and challenges are important so that you know that it's necessary to help you build your character and who you are and who you'll be. Great employees don't stay in bad working environments. Great employees thrive and work well in thriving working environments, in environments that uplift them, environments that help them become a better version of themselves. But this isn't a common working environment that we see in today's era. In today's society, we don't see a lot of people happy about the things that they do for work because they're in poor working environments. But there are a very select few of companies and environments and working spaces that do this really well. So today I want to talk about the traits a leader should have to lead a team of people in a thriving working environment. Starting with number one, we have the leader is interested in building the relationship with his team, with his employees. You have to be invested in your people more than you know. Not just invested in the thing that you want out, what outcome you want them to produce. You have to be invested in them as people and human beings first. You have to be very, very in touch and in tune with their reality, not only your reality alone, because that's going to help you understand who you're working with more. And when you understand who you're working with more and understand what makes them motivated or what drives them to do certain things, that helps you get closer to what your goal is. But you can't do it out of an objective and work-based approach. You have to do it out of a genuine, caring, concerned approach. And that's not easy for a lot of people to do. A lot of people genuinely don't care about other people's feelings or emotions or problems. But a great leader does. A great leader cares about his team's issues that they're having at home, their health, their mentality, the things that they're concerned about. A great leader is concerned about all those things because they know that in order for them to get the best version of that person, they need to be invested in everything that that person is doing. Not saying you have to go out and physically do anything, but you just have to be in tune and understanding of that person and who they are and what they like to do, what their issues are, what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, all those things. You have to know these things as a great leader. In order to have a highly effective working environment, you need to understand your people and be genuinely connected to your people in a way that sets them apart from the everyday employee. Because the everyday employee is only going to show up and do so much for you, while that person that you have working with as a manager, as a financial analyst, whatever the case is going to show up and put in more effort for your company because of the way you show up for them. The second thing we have that a great leader has to enable their team to do is allow them to take risk. Allowing your team to make mistakes is so important. It gives them the ability to make up their mind and come up with an idea for something that they want the company to do, and then see the result from that and learn whether it was the right idea or the wrong idea. Now they're improving because that lesson that they learned from taking that risk is so much better than you disciplining them or reprimanding them from just not allowing them to do anything at all, shutting them out entirely, and pretty much closing off the idea of creativity. You have to allow your company to be creative enough to allow your employees and your workers to be independent thinkers. You don't want a very stale business that has no freedom to do and choose different ideas and make different decisions on their own free will. That's how a leader is supposed to be able to lead. They're supposed to be willing to take their hand off the steering wheel, just like how we're children of God. You have to be willing to let your hand off the steering wheel and let God take the wheel. So if you're willing to let God take the wheel, then you have to let your team be capable of taking the wheel as well and making a decision for the business or a idea for the business and executing and see how it plays out. Let them take the risk. Let them be independent thinkers, because now that creates more energy and more flow and creative thought for your company. Not just you as the own individual thinker, but you have a team of people as well who are individual thinkers that come together and want to come up with new ideas and ways for the business to thrive. Why wouldn't you want that? Why would you want all the workload on yourself? What's the purpose of having the employee? Allow your team to take the risk. Number 3, we have having humility. Having humility as a leader is so important because, as I mentioned in the second point, allowing your team to take risk, having the humility to be humble enough to allow your team to make decisions, not always saying, I'm the boss and I'm the CEO, I make the shots, I call the shots, but actually allowing your team to come to you with an idea and you listening, not just being so reactive because you're a know-it-all. Don't be a know-it-all as an owner. You don't ever want to be somebody who knows everything in your business. That's the last person, at least for me. I don't want to be the person in the business that knows everything about the business and knows what's right for the business. I want to be the person who is the owner of the business, but also has a group of great, intelligent young individuals who have fresh ideas and things that they want to try and implement in the business. Because that gives the business an identity and a pulse bigger than yourself. And it's supposed to be bigger than you. It's not supposed to just be about you. It's supposed to be about someone else, and it's supposed to provide something greater than you for yourself. So you have to be willing to take ego out of the equation. Take your degrees, your education, your relationships, all these things out of the equation. Be open, be an open book, be somebody who's willing to listen, be somebody who's willing to redirect course, be someone who's willing to admit when they're wrong, be somebody who's willing to take the necessary steps to be an open-minded leader, not just a closed-minded leader. In today's era and today's day and age, there's so much going on in the world. So we don't know it all. We only know so much, and we only know what we know. But there's somebody who's young, driven, has energy, and is up all night studying AI, studying all these different technologies and things that's coming about in the world, and can come to you and your team with an opportunity. But you being such an ego-driven person who thinks they know everything, will miss an opportunity by just overlooking that young individual with this fresh idea. Have an open mind. Drop the ego. Number 4, we have, you want to be the leader who helps their team grow. You want to be the person who puts your team in positions to win outside of your business, outside of your company or your idea. You want to create an environment of individual growth leaders who can grow and become something bigger than your company. You want them to grow out of the role of being the everyday employee. You want them to grow out of the role of showing up for your job and doing your job only every single day. Why? Why not? Why don't you want more of what you're creating? Why don't you want more of the environment you're creating in your company instilled in that person for them to now take the step to go and create their own company? Why wouldn't you want that? Your goal should be to create as many individual, independent owners of something in your business. That should be your goal. How many of my employees can I turn into future leaders? How many of my employees can I turn into Fortune 500, Fortune 100 CEOs. How many of my leaders can I grow and help them get on path to become something greater than what they're doing in this company? That should be your goal. If you do that, then you know you're doing something right. Because if you're able to create a leader within your company and have a thriving company, you're winning. How do you lose in that scenario? How does what that person become make you lose in your scenario? If you don't like competition, you're in a world full of hurt and pain, because this world is ran off of competition. Friendly competition, but competition. Sometimes aggressive, whatever the case may be, competition, but competition nonetheless. You have to understand and appreciate that. And you have to want your team to grow out of the level of success that they're having in your business. And the only way they do that is by growing to become a future leader and taking the steps necessary to go out on their own and start their own company. Teach your people everything they need to know. Teach your people all the ins and outs of whatever. If they're a financial advisor for your team, if they're a marketing agent for your team, if they're consulting, if they're sales, whatever the case is, train that person to be the best version of that. Train them to be the best version of that, and that's it. The last trait you want to have as a leader is to lead by example. Leading by example is showing who you are with your actions and not your words. Showing who you are through the things you're doing on a day-to-day basis. So if you say to show up at a certain time, you should be there prior to the time you expect them to show up. You should be there way in advance, because that's going to create the standard in your company that you want to have and establish for your team to follow the procedures you have in place. Set the tonality for your company. You are the owner, so why not be the embodiment and the icon for your team? Because they're watching your every move, they're watching everything you do, they're watching everything you say, they're watching how you respond, they're watching every single detail. So leading by example is the fifth thing that you can do as a leader to create a thriving working environment. If you show up late and expect your team to show up on time, that's a bad look. Why are they showing up on time yet you're showing up late? That's backwards. You should be the one that's more hungry than that person that is working for your company. You're the owner. You're supposed to show it and act as the owner. Move with the energy of an owner, not with the energy and the mindset of somebody who's a part-time employee. The bottom line is to stay invested in people. Stay invested in building people, because the more people you build and the more value you add to someone's life, that just adds more value to yours. And that helps you get further along to where you want to go. Investment tip of the week. If you guys want more tips and tricks about day trading and investing, make sure to click the link in the bio, www.continuebelief.com. I share a lot of free resources and tools, tips and tricks about how to day trade, how to get started investing, and so much more. So make sure you guys check out the link in the bio. Thank you guys so much. Make sure to leave a like and follow. And yeah, see you guys later. Make quality, hear me out, quality investments. What does that mean? Day traders, listen to me. You guys got to stop with this over trading. A lot of you are making impulsive decisions. You're treating the stock market like a casino. You can't do that. Make quality decisions. You can make so much money in the stock market if approached correctly. Making quality decisions looks like you being patient enough to wait long enough to see the results and the conviction you need to see in order to take the trades you want to take. Yes, you may lose on some of these trades, but when you win, your wins can be very much greater than what you are seeing now. And it's simply just due to your lack of patience and ability to wait long enough to make a quality decision. So what do I mean by making a quality decision? Like I mentioned, waiting it out and seeing how the result of the stock movement plays out. And then execution. Executing and targeting the targets that you have in place, but increasing those targets by a lot so that you can get the result that you want to get. If you can't wait long enough in the market to see the results that you want to see, then maybe you should do something else. Maybe you should do anything other than trading, because trading is a patient game. You have to be patient enough to wait long enough to see the results that you want to see play out in a big way. You can continue to get the little wins and the small wins, and don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with that either, if you're playing it the right way. If you're getting the small wins and you're keeping your losses even smaller, then that's great. But if you're getting small wins and then you're getting big losses, the reason is because you lack the ability to wait long enough to take the quality trades. You're taking scalps in different setups that don't align with your conviction and your plan. Have a plan, stick to your plan, trade your plan. Trade with quality conviction and wait for the quality setups. So what's going on with software? Let's talk about software. Should you be buying software? Specifically, Adobe, ServiceNow, and Microsoft. We're gonna start with Adobe. In my opinion, Adobe is a trade, not a long-term buy. It's not a bad. It's really not at a very bad price to buy right now. It's closer to low 200s. So if you were to trade Adobe, I definitely recommend buying at this price. This is probably a better price to buy it at than where it's been in a long time. It's pulled back significantly. So I would recommend to if you want to buy some Adobe, this would be a good price to buy it at if you were to long-term trade it, but I definitely think that it's worth trading for sure. ServiceNow had a very nice run-up in the beginning month of this month and going into the end of May. And it had a nice pullback as well, similar to Microsoft as well. So those two I definitely think are long-term purchases. More so Microsoft. I like ServiceNow, but I like Microsoft better. And so I would also recommend buying those as well. I just think that we had a lot of selling come in to the market last week due to the fact that SpaceX was IPOing, so people trying to free up capital. The software space hasn't really seen too much of a run up just yet. So that's one of the reasons why I think that software is still a good purchase. And so if you were to buy it, I definitely think that these prices that they're currently sitting at are not bad prices to buy. But as I mentioned, Adobe I think is a day trade or like a short term in and out trying to kind of trade. Microsoft is more of a long term trade. ServiceNow is more of a long term trade in my opinion. So yeah, those are my thoughts on those companies. But there are a lot of other software companies as well that are bubbling up. There are a lot of startups and new companies that have been getting listed on the market. A few companies that are on my radar currently in the semiconductor and just the overall technology space, I would say are CoreWeave, Marvell, and of course SpaceX. SpaceX did IPO on Friday. It opened at $150. It was initially started out at $135, but a lot of people pre-bidded and pre-purchased shares, and so when it came on the market, it was at $150. I bought a starter position in SpaceX. I'm not saying that you should buy a starter position. I stand by what I said about waiting it out a few months, but I did go ahead and buy a starter position just to see what happens. I'm comfortable risking what I put in, so I wasn't too concerned about that. But if you guys want to buy SpaceX, my thought process on buying SpaceX does not change. It's still not a profitable company. That's one thing that most people got to know. It's not a profitable company. This is a very, very, very overvalued company right now, given its current financial positioning. So just be mindful of that. It's very overhyped still, so I definitely still think all those things are true. I just don't mind the risk of buying SpaceX. But do your own due diligence, buy at your own risk, and be mindful that stock market is the stock market. Anything can happen. It can be an overvalued company, but there still be a lot of demand for the company, so it runs up. Or it can be an overvalued company. People realize it's an overvalued company, and the stock sells off. If it sells off, that's the ideal, scenario for me at least, because now it gives me more of a buying opportunity. If it runs up, that's also an ideal scenario for me because I'm in the position, so I'm happy with whatever happens. That's kind of how you have to have the mindset you have to have when investing is like you plan for the best case scenario and the worst case scenario. You're not just looking at the upside and not thinking about the downside. You're looking at both sides of the spectrum and understanding what's possible. So just something to keep in mind, just food for thought. SpaceX did IPO. It was a pretty cool thing to see. I never really watched too many IPOs, and there are a lot of companies coming up this year that will be IPOing that are on my radar of companies that I want to have ownership of. And so, yeah, we're in a very interesting time of investing. And I think that a lot of retail investors, a lot of investors, period, hedge funds, venture capitalists, etc., are overzealous. Not even overzealous, just there are a lot of opportunities on the table that are very, very valuable and can be just so much value. It's we're in the most valuable time of investing ever, in my opinion. I think that's just simply due to the fact that we have so many great companies doing so many great things and providing such great value that we're seeing a lot of companies run up in value and really produce great returns on investments. So it's a very exciting time to be an investor. Even with all the ups and downs and the chaos and the volatility, it's still nonetheless exciting. Be mindful that there are correction periods, and you want to be protected and you want to be prepared for those kind of moments, because in this adolescent market, in this young market that we're having, this very youthful and very energetic market we're having, it's also good to be mindful that things have corrections, and things, what must go up always comes down. And it's just good to be mindful of that as well. So being prepared for the pullbacks and the dip buys are the real winners. Those are the people who really win in the market. So just be mindful of that. And that also leads into my next conversation, which I mentioned a little bit about, which was venture capitalists and private investing. Should you be private investing? Absolutely. You need to find a way to get invested in private owned companies. That's where the real value is had. That's where the real returns, the 100x, the 1000x returns come in. Like, you can see that publicly in the market as well, don't get me wrong, but investing privately allows you to see it a lot sooner than you will if you invest publicly. How can you get invested privately? A few different ways, honestly. You can get invested privately a few different ways: through crowdfunding, something that a lot of people do, which is pretty much a crowd of people coming together and investing in one company. Venture capitalists, you can start your own VC fund. You can invest into ETFs that invest in privately owned companies. There's so many different ways to get invested in private companies. The point and the bottom line is you need to be getting invested in some form or fashion, in some way, in these private companies, because these are the companies that are really leading the way to the next 10, 20, 30 years of what the world will be like and use. So that's one thing that's on my list of things to achieve, is get privately invested into privately owned companies. And I recommend that that's something that everybody pursues and tries to do, is private investing. It's just like buying and selling real estate. You're not buying and selling publicly owned stocks. You're just buying and selling privately owned properties who are owned by individuals, and you're buying it out, fixing it up, selling it. Same process, different model. So yeah, private investing is where it's at. It's where you need to be. It's where you want to be. And that's something that you guys need to be researching and looking into. So yeah, with that being said, that will conclude today's episode of the Rich on Games podcast. My name's CB. Thank you all for tuning in once again. I appreciate you all. Man, thank you, God, for another day that was not promised. Thank you, God, for allowing me to just create this content, be able to give back, provide my insight, my thought process, my point of view, my perspective on the things happening in the economy, the different principles and values I believe are valuable and important to people who need to be in positions of leadership. And, just allowing me to give back. As the year progresses and as time progresses, I plan to give back more and more, not just through videos, but through philanthropy as well. Financially, energetically, physically, like going out to different environments and speaking to the youth, because that's just something that is on my heart to do. And I really, really, really want to help people improve their lives. And I think that's what God has me here for. So thank you all once again for tuning in. I appreciate you all. Comment below your favorite part of this. And if you're watching this on the podcast, make sure to show some love and support in some way or fashion. Thank you all once again. I'll see you guys next week, same place, same time.